So next presenter is in person. So we have you, Liang, here. So the paper is the role of preference, consistency, defaults, and musical expertise in users' exploration behavior in genre exploration recommender.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Liang, and today I'm going to talk about our work on users' exploration behavior in our music genre exploration recommender. And this is a joint work done together with my supervisor, Martijn Willemsen, and we both from Jazz and Eindhoven University of Technology, the Netherlands. So recently there's some discussion about whether recommender system should reinforce users' current preference or the recommender system should help users to explore new preference. And in the music domain, we also see a lot of this exploration tool come out to help users to develop new preference. And in our previous work, we also built a music genre exploration tool to help users to explore new tastes from a different music genre. However, there are still some remaining questions that are still open. So for instance, we still do not know how far users actually explore from their current preference, and does the exploration behavior differ among different individuals? Does this depend on users' musical expertise? And if users prefer to stay around their current preference as a system designed for exploration, how could a system do in order to motivate users to explore away from their current preference? So in this work, we try to answer most of these questions, but firstly present analysis on preference consistency. So we're wondering what's the relation between users' preference consistency and the musical expertise? And we're also wondering how the users' exploration behavior relate to their musical expertise. And in the second part of our work, we're wondering if a system can be designed to motivate users to explore new music tastes, especially through two ways of nudging, by setting defaults or reordering the recommendation list. And let's first look at analysis on preference consistency. And for this analysis, we collect data from our previous studies and also the events. We got the Spotify profile of around 319 users on their top listened artists and also the tags associated with the artist. In short term, which is a 4-week preference, in medium term, 6 months, and in long term, which consider all their listening history. And their preference consistency is measured at their top listened artists and also tags associated with their top listened artists in 3 levels. Basically, the consistency between the short term and long term, the consistency between the short term and medium term, and consistency between the medium term and long term. And in addition, we also measure their musical expertise with music sophistication index on active engagement and emotional engagement. So what's the relation between musical expertise and preference consistency? Let's first look at the 2 graphs. So the x-axis of this graph shows the musical expertise, and the y-axis indicates the artist or tag level consistency. So from both graphs, we see that the medium-term and the long-term preference shows the highest consistency as indicated by the purple line, and also the short-term and long-term shows lowest consistency as indicated by the purple line. And we also find with the increase of MCE, namely musical expertise, the preference consistency also goes up. So this indicates users with higher musical expertise, they are more consistent at their preference than those with lower expertise. And this preference consistency also seems to influence users' exploration behavior during their exploration. So in our previous study, we asked users to select a music genre to explore, and we find that the closer genre is to a user's current preference, the more likely that they tend to select genre to explore. And this effect is even stronger for those with higher musical expertise. So now we have found that users tend to explore around their current preference. We're wondering if we can nudge users to explore, and also how does this depend on their musical expertise. So we look into the scenario of music genre exploration, and in this scenario, users first need to select genre to explore, and then explore the select genre with the recommendations. So firstly, we're wondering if we can nudge users to select a more distant genre by pre-selecting a more distant genre and also reordering the recommendation list. And then we're wondering if we can nudge users to explore away from their current preference by setting a different slider, like users can use to explore. So let's first look at a nudge on the genre selection. So in this phase, users need to select genre to explore, either select a closed genre or either from the interface, which the genre were presented with the closed first or the distance first, and the genre closeness is calculated from a personalized PageRank algorithms. And after selecting genre to explore, users are given a task to explore the select genre with the slider. And they are asked to find the playlist that they find the most helpful to explore the selected genre. So with the slider, users are able to adapt the recommendations from the most representative recommendations of the genre to the most personalized recommendations of the genre. And at the same time, they can also inspect the contour plot to see the changes of the recommendations at the right side. And we adapt the recommendation approach from our previous work. So if you're interested in the approach, please just look into our paper. And in this phase, we manipulated the slider position at either the most representative position, or in the middle, or the most personalized position. So we want to see if the initial slider position would at last influence how users put their last slider are. And for this study, we recruit 353 participants from Prolific. And let's see if we can nudge users to explore further away from their current preference. So we first look into if we can nudge users to explore more distant genres. And we find yes, when the distant genres are presented at the top of the list, the users are more likely to select those distant genres, but that effect is less stronger for those with higher music expertise, so they are more stable at their preference and they're less likely to move away from their current preference. And we also look at the absolute distance users explore away from their current preference. So users are more likely to explore further away from their current preference if they are nudged for selecting a more distant genre. And we also find the default for the most representative slider position also makes users explore further away from their current preference by letting them set the slider at a less personalized position, which means that more further away from their current preference. So we see from the study that users can be nudged to explore further away from their current preference. And what we have learned from this study, so firstly, we find users with higher music expertise, they tend to have a more stable preference than those with lower expertise. And during exploration, users tend to explore close to their current preference, but this effect is especially stronger for those with higher expertise. And thirdly, nudging for exploration can trigger users' exploration away from their current preference. However, this effect is less stronger for those with higher musical expertise. So this might indicate that sometimes it might be helpful to have some personalized nudge instead of making nudge one size fits all. So yeah, thank you for your attention. And we also have a demo presentation during break time. If you're interested in our interface, you're welcome to also find me there.
So thank you very much for the great presentation. So you mentioned earlier that the music sophistication and active engagement is an index, right? But however, we have like several questions asking how do you measure music expertise and what the MS AE is exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So actually, before the studies begins, we have this, so there is an index called Music Sophistication Index. So there are two different scales. One is on active engagement, another is on emotional engagement. And we kind of ask these questions as survey to the user. We let them, for example, select the scores. For instance, like how often do you listen to a music within a day? Like we use this kind of scale, but it's a pretty standard index to evaluate musical expertise.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much. I think you had even a reference in your slides.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there is also a reference, if I can go back. Oh, it's too far.
We have another question.
Yep. Yeah, this one.
So did you try to factor out the positional bias in the nudge analysis?
Sorry?
Positional bias, did you consider the positional bias in the nudge analysis?
The position bias?
Yeah.
What kind of position bias?
So positional bias, I think people are referring kind of like how items were ranked and kind of like, well, the position upper or lower might be biasing the user because like you had some sort of personalization in how this ranking was generated.
So we actually manipulate this, how this genre is shown to the users. We just want to use this rank list and the position of the genre to influence users' behavior. That's the part of the nudge. You mean this recommendation list?
Well, this question was coming from the audience. Maybe we can answer this question later offline. I actually had another question about nudging. So I know that nudging have sometimes a negative effect on decision maker because like decision makers might feel constrained actually to do an action instead of like being informed of what it works. I mean like what would be better for him. So have you thought about like using it in combination to some explanations, maybe instead of nudging using boosting, which is like an improved form of nudging, offering to the user a bit like a more informed way of...
Yeah, actually, from this interface we could see like users can make free selection of the genres. We just make the first one pre-selected and we order the recommendation list, but they have free choice, so it's not forced. And also in this interface, they can use the slider freely. So just the initial position is not, they are not on the initial position, but not, they have free choice.
Okay, that answers it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.